If you're a Bulls fan or if you've been following the Bulls this past season and off season, you obviously know that the main talk around the organization, at least when it comes to the fans and the media, is that the Bulls need to upgrade at the point guard position. Now, I personally am of the belief that just because I agree with that sentiment does not mean that I think that we need to do away with Coby White. I actually think that he could be the point guard for the future as long as he continues to develop, and with the strong work ethic that Coby has, which I believe that he can get there. The fact of the matter is the Bulls team is still inching closer to needing to win now after the trade that was made for Nikola Vucevic, and because of that, the Bulls don't have time to wait for Coby White to develop into that starting point guard, a playmaking point guard, a floor general that we need him to be. Now, I've made a host of videos on potential free agents that the Bulls should consider targeting for upgrading at the point guard position or trade options, and generally the same names come up when discussing these options. Guys like Lonzo Ball, Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Lowry, Mike Conley, even the more unlikely player but still talked about, Chris Paul, and then of course Ben Simmons when it comes to trade options. We've talked about even Malcolm Brogdon or DeJounte Murray more recently as potential trade targets, but there are a handful of point guard options that haven't been talked about as much as some of these other ones that I've made in recent videos, and I want to talk about these players and what they could potentially bring and offer for the Bulls. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Real quick, before I get into the content, if you've been following the channel, you know that I am doing 5 separate giveaways on the channel all the way up until we get to 10,000 subscribers. As a thank you to all my viewers for supporting the channel, I will be giving away a jersey, a gift card to the NBAstore.com, a Scottie Pippen piece of sports memorabilia, and also a 2021 NBA Edition Bulls hat. And then finally, the last giveaway will be tickets to a Bulls game at the United Center for this upcoming season. So make sure you are tuned into the channel, make sure you're subscribed and have bell notifications on, because I will be announcing each giveaway separately on a random video in a given week. And if you're tuning into this video, well then you're in luck, because this video will be the very first giveaway of the 5 leading up to 10K. And in this video, I will be giving away a $50 gift card to the NBAstore.com. No, I am not affiliated with the NBAstore.com, nor are they sponsoring this video. I just assume that if you're watching this video, you're a fan of the NBA and would enjoy some NBA merchandise. So to win this giveaway, I will be asking a Bulls trivia question, and the first to answer that question correctly in the comments in chronological order, and I will check editing timestamps, will win this gift card. Now, as for the trivia question, here it is. Who was the first Bulls head coach following the 1998 championship season after Phil Jackson was let go? Submit your answer in the comments below, and whoever wins, I will announce in tomorrow's video with a screenshot, and I'll message the winner to have the gift card sent to them. So best of luck, and don't forget, if you missed this one, there will be more giveaways coming up. Anyway, now that we got that out of the way, let's get back into the content. So as I mentioned, there have been a lot of point guards discussed as options for the Bulls in this upcoming season. Most notably, I think Lonzo Ball is the name that floats around most often, because he does fit a lot of the Bulls' needs, being a great passer, a playmaker, as well as a solid defender. Lonzo is known for his court vision and also his unselfish approach in needing, or I guess not needing, to be a number 1 option, but rather distributing for a team's main offensive players. But that being said, there are guys that haven't been talked about as much that I'm sure likely will come up as we start to near free agency at the beginning of August. Now, the players that I'm about to list aren't necessarily players I personally would like or would want or think make sense for the Bulls, but point guards that are either available, whether they be free agents or guys who are on the trading block, that could be considered for the Bulls. And the first player I want to talk about is Ricky Rubio. Now, Ricky Rubio, first and foremost, isn't going to be a game changer for the Bulls. He's not going to turn the Bulls into title contenders, and to be honest, he's a marginal upgrade at point guard compared to what we have right now. And I would even argue that long-term Coby White is going to be the better option. The only reason Rubio would fit decently with this Bulls team is because he's actually a good defender, especially on the perimeter. Again, something the Bulls have been needing for a while. He has great court vision in his crafty style of play and running an offense, and he's a veteran who has extensive experience running the point. That being said, this past season, he had one of the worst seasons of his career with the Wolves, with career lows in all statistical categories. He's not a good shooter, especially from distance, shooting just 30% from 3 last season. On top of that, the veteran experience is nice, but he is a little older. He's going to be 31 at the start of next season and will be making $17.8 million in the final year of his deal. It's not the most settling thing for a player who looks like he's starting to decline, but he is an option in the sense that you likely wouldn't have to trade too much for him since he's an expiring contract, his value is low after a poor season, and the Wolves already have quite a few guards and will be looking to move on from him. Now, personally, I wouldn't trade much for Rubio. I'm thinking max a swap for Satoransky, or maybe even shipping the Wolves a second-round pick, and that's about it, just because his contract really isn't that favorable for his level of play. But because it's an expiring deal and the Bulls, if they strike out on all their options this free agency, Rubio might be a good contingency plan as a one-year rental. The next player that I want to talk about that isn't often mentioned is Devonte Graham. Now, unlike Rubio, where the Bulls would have to trade for him because he's under contract, Graham will actually be a restricted free agent. So just like Markkanen, he will be able to receive offers from any team, and the Hornets will have the ability to match the highest offer sheet. Of course, there is always the possibility of doing a sign-and trade as well. Now, Devonte is an option I like more than some of these other players, including Rubio, mainly because he's younger. You can likely get him on a cheaper deal, even cheaper than someone like Lonzo Ball, and because he's a free agent, and I think the Hornets will be unlikely looking to match any offer that he gets. Now that LaMelo Ball is going to be the point guard for the future, you can probably get him without having to trade anything in return or paying too much. Now, Devonte Graham did regress a little this past season from his sophomore year, where he really broke out actually, but part of that is because LaMelo Ball really started to shine and took some of his minutes and eventually his starting spot. But overall, Graham is still a promising young player. He averaged 14.8 points per game, 5.4 assists, and nearly a steal a game, and he also improved his shooting quite a bit since entering the league. The only thing is, Graham averaged 18 and 7.5 assists per game last season in 35 minutes of play, so it does say a lot about his ability when he's given the opportunity and the minutes when he's the lead option at point. Now, like Rubio, and really this kind of applies to all of these options, I don't think that Devonte Graham moves the needle a ton for the Bulls. Definitely doesn't make them a title contender, and you could even argue his skills are very similar to Coby White, although a slight better defender and playmaker. So I think he would be good for the Bulls, as he still does have the ability to develop further, and you can probably get him on a cheaper contract in the $12 to $15 million a year range, which is much less than you could get for guys like Lonzo, Dinwiddie, Lowry, Conley, and of course Ben Simmons. So another good contingency option for the Bulls. And then finally, the last point guard that isn't being talked about as much, who is likely on the trading block given the direction that his current team is going on, although I feel that people have been talking about this more recently, but that's John Wall. Now, let me start by saying I want nothing to do with John Wall, so don't take this as me explaining why the Bulls need to go after him, rather just touching on the pros and cons of bringing him in. Now, the reason I don't want John Wall on the Bulls, and part of the reason why I'm so confused why I see so many Bulls fans saying we should absolutely trade for Wall, is the fact that the guy has arguably the worst contract in the entire NBA, and he's incredibly injury prone, coming off 2 back-to-back injuries before being traded from the Wizards, and then more recently another injury with the Rockets, which sidelined him for a good portion of this past season. And when I say a bad contract, I mean a bad contract. John Wall is going to be making $44.3 million next season, and then the following season he'll be on a player option of $47.3 million, which he'll obviously exercise that player option, because why wouldn't he at his age making that kind of money and with his injury history? Now, the criticism of John Wall and his contract aside, I mean, this is still a very capable player, a former All-Star and an All-NBA player who, even this past season in limited games that he played, still looked very athletic and smooth in his passing and scoring. He averaged 20.6 points per game and nearly 7 assists, and although his defense isn't what it used to be back when he was an all-defensive team player, he's still a decent defender in picking pockets and blocking shots for his size. His efficiency, especially his shooting, dropped off pretty significantly though, and he does turn the ball over quite a bit, which isn't something that the Bulls are really going to need, given the fact that they struggled all season in running an offense and turning the ball over. All of this being said, this really isn't a viable option, and not just because of the cons and all the cons that I just mentioned regarding John Wall, but more importantly, the Bulls can't take on his contract. They just don't have the salary cap space to do so, even if they wanted to. Not only that, but the Bulls The only way they would be able to get him is via a trade, and I don't know about you, but there is no way, or there's not much anyway, that I would be willing to give up for John Wall. If anything, the Rockets would have to make this an incentive for the Bulls by throwing in something else for taking on such a bad contract. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think though. How do you feel about these 3 players as potential contingency options for the Bulls if they do in fact strike out in free agency? Are there other point guards that maybe aren't being talked about as much as potential options for Bulls? Let me know in the comments, and also be sure to leave your trivia answer in the comments as well for a chance to win the first giveaway of 5 for the $50 gift card to the NBAstore.com. As always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.